Hey everybody, how's it going out there? Hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining me on this incredible day, July 3rd, the eve of the greatest day there is, July 4th, when we get together and blow off a few of our fingers to show our love for our country. That's what we do. Thank you for being here, and many of you are watching in other countries, so you maybe don't even know what I'm talking about. But that's all right. That's okay. I'm going to get into how the U.S. is rejoining the 1800s. It's like Back to the Future, except it's back to the past. I'm going to talk about our technology is increasingly becoming that of the 1800s compared to certain other countries. I'll be talking about that. I'll be talking about the incredible harm of a certain industry that gets covered essentially 0% by your mainstream media or most media in general. I will also talk about how a major health organization is about to declare something cancerous that we've all been eating and drinking for like 40 or 50 years, depending on how old you are. I'm going to get into all that and more. I'll see how much time how much time we have to squeeze all this in here. But yeah, thanks for joining me. Please click subscribe. Please click thumbs up. I'm closing in on that 50,000 at Rumble, so I hope you'll help me do that. And yeah, this is the new schedule. This is the first day of the new schedule, followed by a day off. So I kind of fucked it up. But this is the first day of Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday will be my live streams. However, tomorrow, being such a wonderful day of setting things on fire and drinking out of used beer helmets, I will be skipping tomorrow. But in general, it'll be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And welcome to everyone. Please help out by sharing this. Okay, let's do it. Let's get into it. I'm also going to talk about how Yard Rock 2024 has already eliminated $12,000 of medical debt for struggling Americans. I'll give you more information on that in a moment. But okay, let's get to the U.S. And I'm going to compare this to specifically one other country. You might have guessed it's China. But so we have all these accidents across the U.S., right? We had this major one that just took place a few days ago in Montana. Cleanup continues after a train carrying potential contaminants derails into the Yellowstone River in Montana. The incident, and I mean, just look at the visuals of this. Does this not look like something out of some Old West movie where some bank robbers blew up the train trestle? I mean, you look around America, a lot of the United States looks like it belongs into the 1800s, and they're unsure, at least as of the writing of this article, they say they're unsure as to whether the train trestle collapsed, thereby causing the train to explode and leak, or the train was just going across the train trestle, exploded and leaked, and then caused the trestle to collapse. Either one, I'm going to go not good. I'm going to go not really space age, not really Jetsons the technology here. The incident left multiple tankers in the Yellowstone River and decimated the railroad portion of the Yellowstone Twin River bridges in Stillwater County, Montana. Officials have not indicated whether the derailment caused the bridge to collapse or whether the collapse precipitated the derailment. 3 of the rail cars that derailed were carrying hot asphalt, and 4 were carrying molten sulfur. And I don't really think it's fair that they're talking about hot asphalt, because that was actually, I thought that was a patented insult I had for people when they were being annoying. You're acting like hot asphalt. I feel like it's a good thing to call people. Anyway, but part of the reason we have to train this incredibly toxic shit, including oil sometimes, across the country is because we don't have better technology for that. We don't have better ways to do it. Our oil pipelines, which should be stopped. I mean, we should be creating 0 new oil pipelines, but on top of that, they're all leaking. So in order to get around some of these collapsing, leaking infrastructure on that front, these toxic companies that don't care about destroying our landscape and destroying our world, they truck and ship this shit around the country in trains using 18th century, 19th century technology. In fact, I wanted to show, let's see, this is what the rail workers said about, well, hold on, I'm jumping ahead of myself. Oh, no, I guess I wasn't going to pull up an article on that. This is what the rail workers said about the catastrophe in Palestine, Ohio. They said, the Rail Workers Union said that the immediate cause of the Ohio train wreck appears to have been a 19th century style mechanical failure of the axle on one of the cars, an overheated bearing leading to derailment and then jackknifing tumbling cars. And that has destroyed that entire town. I mean, just truly incredible destruction based on technology that is over 100 years old. I mean, this shit should not be happening anymore in our country, in one of the richest countries in the world. And compare these 19th century style failures to what's going on in China. You obviously have the bullet trains. I highlighted some of them the other day. But here's something else in terms of China's technology. They just gave a green light to a nuclear reactor that burns thorium, a fuel that could power the country for a mere 20,000 years. It has several advantages over uranium reactors, including safety, reduced waste, better fuel efficiency, and suitability for use in arid, landlocked areas. Now, I'm not going to get into the debate of whether we should be building new nuclear power facilities of any kind. I know that is a very active debate. Oliver Stone is putting out a movie right now about how wonderful nuclear energy is. Obviously, you all have heard many of the complaints of nuclear energy and the fact that it can make areas of the world toxic for roughly 10,000 years, which is bad. But however, this thorium reactor sounds like it's better in many ways, including safety and far less waste, and the fact that it doesn't have to be on a waterway, which is one of the biggest things, right? That's what made Fukushima so horrific, is that it's irradiating the Pacific. It's what made 3 Mile Island, part of what made 3 Mile Island so scary, is that it would dump all that radiation into water, which then carries it off to kill and cause cancer in so many other people. China's nuclear safety watchdog has issued an operational permit for the nation's thorium reactor, Advanced Nuclear Technologies. The reactor, a 2-megawatt liquid-fueled thorium molten salt reactor. That sounds like a Mad Lib. That sounds like science nerds playing Mad Libs. Is located in the Gobi Desert, city of Wuwei in Gansu province. Thorium MSRs are a type of advanced nuclear technology that use liquid fuels, typically molten salts. Yeah, hot asphalt. Had to throw that in there. As both a fuel and a coolant, they offer several potential advantages over traditional uranium reactors, including increased safety, reduced waste, and improved fuel efficiency. Thorium is also a more abundant resource compared with uranium, and China has significant thorium reserves. And I think there's a big reason. I've also talked about nuclear fusion as a possibility for the future, but there's a big reason the U.S., yeah, we might have some study of some of these things. We did for a while take part in the joint venture of discovering how to use nuclear fusion. That it has zero radioactive waste. But in general, the U.S. doesn't want to get to that point where we replace all of energy with a energy source that does not destroy our planet, that does not cause the mass heating of our planet, that does not cause the mass destruction of the one and only pale blue dot we will ever have. There's a reason, and that is, and you guys know what I'm gonna say, the petrodollar. If we create the fucking energy that replaces all of fossil fuels, all of coal, all of petroleum, not only does big oil go out of business, but the U.S. goes out of business. So now this isn't going for all technology. Obviously, I was talking about U.S. fading in multiple regards, but this is specifically talking about us, the United States, not wanting to push forward on anything that gets outside of fossil fuels. Yes, there's been some, subsidies for green energy in some regard, but if you compare those subsidies to the subsidies that are daily given to big oil around the world, mainly in the US, I mean, we're one of the biggest. It's nothing. It's nothing. So while I know the right-wing media and Fox News or whatever will love to say there's subsidies for windmills, that we gave $1 billion for a windmill, and it's like, dude, the amount that big oil is subsidized throughout the world is trillions of dollars. Anyway, that was a side note. But so China, because and here's the deeper reason, because I like to get into the multiple layers of reality. If you were to see this on a mainstream media, well, they wouldn't cover this to begin with, but if you were to see something similar on a mainstream media show, they might say, hey, we're lacking in technology. China's doing better in technology. It sucks. And that'd be the end of their analysis. Well, to get a little deeper beyond just the petrodollar, this is because of the aspects of our society that are 100% capitalism, right? We every decision is just, will this provide immense profit very soon, like in the next year? That is the end of the decision-making process in general for America, for the United States. Whereas China, even though there's a lot of capitalism there, China has decisions like, hey, 10 years from now, will this immensely help our country? That is how they, and again, it's not like everything about China is perfect, but that is how they took 850 million people out of poverty, out of extreme poverty. That's not an exaggeration. That is, even the UN acknowledges these numbers. Even Western entities acknowledge these numbers. China has taken 850 million people, over 2 United States worth of humans, out of extreme poverty over the past 30 years. And they did it because they can have long-term plans to benefit their citizens in a variety of ways. The U.S. can't. The U.S. doesn't, because it's all market-based, right? 100%. Now, again, China has a lot of capitalism there, but it is able to do these things that are long-term and meant to benefit the people, whereas the United States can't. There's nothing. When was the last fucking 15-year project the U.S. did that where there was essentially no profit motive in it? It was just, how do we help people? How do we change our society? Doesn't exist. Ever. Do you know how long ever is? It is like more than the age of Jack Nicholson. All right. It is old. It's just really old. Ever is. It's older than Joe Biden. It's longer than Joe Biden is alive. I mean, not that he's still alive, but whatever. But here's another point about why it is that the U.S. continues to go back in time. Going back in time sounds fun, doesn't it? But it's I'm sitting in the middle of it. It's not fun. Not fun. No. It's not fun to be on a bridge 1 week before you then read a news story about how it collapsed. Like Interstate 95 collapsed and it killed multiple people a few weeks ago. But this is a great point. Another point as to why the U.S. is so behind on technology. Percentage of college students who study engineering now. In the U.S., 6%. In China, 33%. But on top of that, as if that's not bad enough, the 6% in the U.S. studying engineering, I don't know the exact numbers, but a lot of them are Asian, of Asian descent, and Indian, Chinese. So it's like, not only is it like Americans, only 6% are studying engineering, but on top of that, the 6% who are studying engineering, most of them are not white. Now, I don't think that should really matter. It'd be nice if we got to a world where saying what race you were had no significance any longer, but unfortunately, we're not there yet. But then this tweet continues, because bullshitting is all you need to make money in an economy dominated by services. And I don't have the numbers right here, but speaking of bullshitting, the number of people, of students studying quote unquote business now in college and in university, it has over doubled. And the number studying humanities, studying arts, studying, even media and things like that. Now, granted, they're probably studying how to be a propagandist, but anyway, studying those things, studying humanities, studying astronomy, all of those type of things, sciences and stuff, it has dwindled, and arts and sciences, and now the business is like is double the amount studying arts and sciences. So you have all of these people who have majored in business, and they go, and most of them get very wealthy, while those who actually care to like make the world a better place is practically non-existent in American universities. In tech companies in the USA, the tweet continues, most engineers are non-whites and almost all salespeople are white. The American system has managed to do well so far due to, or continue. I don't know if we're doing well right now, as I was just pointing out, but he means the reason we haven't like full on collapsed due to dollar hegemony that attracts the smartest immigrants and imperialism that ensures that Germany, Japan, and South Korea don't surpass or challenge the U.S. And believe it or not, there's a great Guardian article that sums this up from several months ago. Now, the Guardian nowadays largely does neoliberal garbage. However, every once in a while, something slips through. It's like many of these outlets, Guardian, Reuters. There's a few. Even occasionally, there's even a New York Times opinion piece where it's like they mostly do neoliberal propaganda garbage, but every once in a while, something important and interesting and correct will slip out like a fart at a dinner party. And they respond the same afterwards. When after that article comes out, they all look around and wasn't me. I didn't. What? I didn't. It was this. The chair was the chair was squeaking. What? I didn't. It wasn't me. That's how they respond when they put out something good and important. But so this is from several months. This is from like 8 months ago. It's probably the last time the Guardian did something like this. What would you call a country, quoting from the article now, what would you call a country where nearly 1 in 10 adults has medical debts, more on that in a moment, and a broken bone can boot you into bankruptcy? A country where a city of more than 160,000 residents recently had no safe drinking water for weeks. A country where life expectancy has dropped for the second year in a row, and people sell their blood plasma in order to make ends meet. And the same country she's talking about is responsible for over 90% of all sold blood plasma. A country where the maternal mortality rate of Black women in the capital of that country is nearly twice as high as for women in Syria. You call it one of the richest countries in the world, this article says. The U.S. is the second wealthiest country in the world, second to China now. It's the largest economy in the world when you look at GDP, and it's home to some of the richest people in the world. By all of those measures of progress, the U.S. is doing great. But by other measures, however, things are not quite so rosy. The UN recently demoted the U.S. to 41st, down from 32nd in a global ranking based on its sustainable development goals. That ranks the U.S. down with Cuba and just above Bulgaria. Bulgaria is often considered a developing country, not yet developed, is how many rank it. The U.S., therefore, the article continues, is becoming a developing country. We are going back in time, okay? And it's less fun than in the movies. We are going back to the 1800s, and you're seeing our infrastructure collapse in ways that most infrastructure in developed countries don't collapse. You don't see in most of the richest countries in this world, you don't see over 2,000 cities with unsafe lead levels in their fucking drinking water. Okay, these are antiquated problems because we are going back in time because the sophistication of our technology and much of our many of our corporations, they are doing impressive technology, right? Apple, Tesla, in some regards. So many of these various companies do impressive. OpenAI, isn't that an American thing that was just created? Many of them are doing impressive work. All the military contractors, man, are they making high-level bombs. Those bombs are so cool. The things they can do, most of them can do the Sunday New York Times crossword puzzle. That's right. Our smart bombs can do Sunday New York Times crossword in like seconds. It's amazing. It's unbelievable. So all of that, top of the line. But the stuff that actually helps citizens, the stuff that is not meant for profit, the stuff that actually is meant to just make everyone's lives better, like clean fucking drinking fucking water, that stuff we don't do. We don't care about. Not part of our agenda, not part of our plan, not part of our 2-year plan, a 5-year plan, or 10-year plan, or 12-year plan. No plan. We have no plan to help average people. It is just, where can we make more money? So, as so many countries are zipping into the future, turning into thorium reactors and bullet trains. If the U.S. had bullet trains, like Baltimore and Washington, D.C. would be suburbs of New York City. If you needed to commute and work in New York City, you could do it and live out in fucking outside Washington, D.C. Now, I don't know if that would make the nation better. Probably not, but still, it sounds pretty spectacular. You could make it across. I mean, if it were taking away from people that are using planes on daily commutes, because the ultra rich in this world now have the money to drop on a $2,000-$3,000 plane ticket one day, and it means nothing to them. They will sometimes use plane flights to commute, like from New York to LA, have a meeting in the airport and fly back. It means nothing to them, despite the emissions, despite the harm to the globe. It means nothing. So imagine if it were bullet trains instead of all that endless air travel. It's just amazing how we're going back in time. And I wish it were cool. I wish it meant that we got to show up in 1863 and be like, whoa, look at how their jackets look. Look at the funny hats everyone has on. Oh my God, mutton chops were really a thing. Like, if that were just all it meant, then I'd be down. But it's much worse than that. It's things collapsing, people falling into rivers, hot asphalt everywhere. We are behaving like steaming hot asphalt. That's what our politicians are. They are steaming hot asphalt. All right, now that I got that story off my chest, I don't just cover stories. I get stories off my chest. That's what I do. Some call it reporting. I get them off my chest. But I mentioned about the medical debt. That was in the Guardian article there about the medical debt. Well, I am proud to announce, and I'll keep updating you guys on this. I'm proud to announce that the rock I found on the ground. Actually, I have him here. If you want to actually see him. He's right here. He's right. This is the rock running for president. He's not large, because it's not about size. Okay. Americans are so caught up in size. It's not okay. Just get over it. It's not about size, but he's running for president of the United States. He's easily better than everyone in the corporate parties. And the reason I'm bringing it up right now is already since I announced his campaign, he has erased $12,000 of medical debt for struggling Americans. I'm not kidding. That's not a joke. $12,000 in medical debt has been erased because if you go to we're doing it through ripmedicaldebt.com. And the way RIP Medical Debt works is if you donate an amount of money, that amount of money is multiplied by 100 because of the way our medical debt in this stupid, did I mention stupid system works, where debt companies will sell it back and forth to each other for pennies on the dollar. But if one of them were to buy it and erase it and just not collect it, it's over. So you could buy it for pennies on the dollar and say, it's gone. I burned it. You set fire to it. And so that's what RIP Medical Debt does. So via this debt jubilee, via this ability to multiply your donation, we've already erased $12,000 of medical debt for struggling Americans, which destroys lives. Which $12,000 of erased medical debt, that's more than Trump and Biden have erased combined. So if I and this rock, I'm the campaign manager. If I and this rock are able to do that in a matter of days, imagine how much could be done by our politicians if they gave a flying shit, but they don't. But anyway, that's at yardrock2024.com. But I also wanted to bring it up to show you this. I have this poll going right now on my Twitter at Lee Camp. You can go over there if you'd like to vote on it at Lee Camp. And I said the presidential election is a 2-year-long political theater stunt that the American people have almost zero true impact on. We then have nearly zero impact on the behavior of the person who wins, not to mention they don't even have as much impact as we believe they do. That being said, who would you vote for if these were the options for president? Biden, Trump, and a rock off the ground. A rock that I found on the ground. And a rock off the ground is running away with it, winning by it's 72% to 21% for Trump, 7% roughly for Biden. Yard Rock is killing it in this poll. I just put that up there. It's at Lee Camp if you feel like voting in it. Now, many are asking me to include Cornel West in the polling. Or RFK, but I feel like that's not the point. The point is that Yard Rock is better than the fucking two main corporate bullshit parties. Yes, Robert Kennedy is running, Jr. is running in the Democratic Party. He has said some very good things, which I have highlighted. He has said some not so good things, like the fact that CIA is made up basically of brave men and women who are doing a wonderful job. Also, he has said that he will take money from anywhere, billionaires, corporations, doesn't care. So I highlight some good things because I feel like they're good discussion points, and I will continue to do that. I will also highlight the things that Yard Rock stands for. But in terms of Cornel West, I'm a big fan of Cornel West, and I am hoping he has said he will come on the show soon. But obviously his schedule is insane, so I don't blame him for not having time at the moment. But as I say on yardrock2024.com, is it lists everything that the Yard Rock stands for, and everything he's done. Never committed a war crime, never done anything like that, never taken money from corporations, etc. And if anyone can line up with all of that, then I say vote for that person. So I haven't gone down the list, but Cornel West might be might line up similarly. Anyway, that being said, let's move on to the item that the WHO is about to declare cancerous, which we all drink. And I know WHO has tons of problems, but that doesn't mean they're wrong about this. The WHO, World Health Organization, is about to declare aspartame, which is basically equal sweetener, can cause cancer. Here's why you should listen, the article says. And not only is it equal sweetener, but it's in like tons of your sodas, of your diet sodas and things like that. And here's the thing. People have been debating about aspartame and equal for years and years. I remember doing a video on it before I had Redacted Tonight, talking about how studies had shown that some people get seizures. And when I did that video, by the way, some people attacked me and said, "Hey, you out of your mind, equal sweetener is fine. It's fine. What's wrong with you?" And here we are years later. People have been eating and drinking this stuff for decades. And now you have major health organizations declaring it cancerous. There's some astonishing news in the world of food safety. Aspartame, a common artificial sweetener used in a wide range of foods and beverages, is about to be declared a carcinogen by a leading global health agency. In mid-July, the International Agency for Research on Cancer plans to release the results of a fresh review of safety data on the product. According to Reuters, the agency will declare that aspartame is possibly carcinogenic to humans. It can be hard for attentive consumers to know who to trust and to weigh in on safety. That's because since aspartame's earliest days, the product's manufacturers and the industry that now reaps enormous profits from its sale have sought to influence its approval for consumer use. When American pharmaceutical company GD Searle first tried to get aspartame approved in 1973, the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, they were trying to get it approved, and the FDA denied it. Independent scientists alleged the product could cause a range of neurological disorders, and some alleged the company hadn't been entirely above board in its safety testing. What? A corporation that's lying about the safety of its product. What's this world? What's this world coming to? In January 1981, Ronald Reagan became the U.S. president. His transition team included then CEO of GD Searle, Donald Rumsfeld. Oh, Rummy. Oh, Rummy's done so much. Rummy's done so much good in this world, such as pushing neurologic disorder causing chemicals on us. Although an independent FDA board warned that May of 1981 that the drug might induce brain tumors. What? It's for a Diet Coke. Who isn't willing to risk a brain tumor? Come on. So tasty. I love drinking up a few brain tumors. The agency's newly installed director overruled them, and the FDA approved the product. In the 1990s, scientists began to raise concern. So this article continues to go through how there's been a fight over this. Thank you, Reverend Edmund Balella, as well. There's been a fight over this for decades. Decades they've been denying this and fighting against it. Back to Donald Rumsfeld under Ronald Reagan. I mean, Jesus Christ. And how fucking evil was Donald Rumsfeld that this wouldn't even make his resume? It's what, like, if you read Donald Rumsfeld's resume, the fact that he had, I mean, who hasn't at some point had a sip of a Diet Coke or some Equal or something, or some diet candy or something? So the fact that Rumsfeld successfully got a carcinogen, a brain tumor causing chemical into the bodies of nearly every American, and including billions worldwide, that wouldn't even be on his resume. Like, he wouldn't even, really, you'd go down the resume, it'd be like, I didn't have room under helped perpetrate Vietnam. I didn't, the fucking decimation that was the war on Vietnam. I didn't room on I wanted to keep it to, 17 pages of death and destruction. I didn't room for the aspartame. Hot aspartame is what that guy was. But this also fits with a pattern, right? Of these corporations putting forward something horrific that they've barely tested, and acting like it's safe, acting like it's fine. You have captured U.S. agencies agreeing to this, and agreeing that it's fine. People, another big one would be Roundup herbicide, right? Which had tests showing it caused cancer for years. And they did every trick in the book. They bought off various review boards. They bought off scientific studies. They paid scientists to go out and say it's not true. Or faux scientists. They went after any journalist who was covering Roundup herbicide. And even to this day, Bayer Chemical, which, by the way, got its start under the Nazis, was actually run by Nazis, and the company that owned Bayer helped create Auschwitz. And so Bayer has bought Monsanto, right? So you don't hear the word Monsanto anymore because it's owned by Bayer. But most of what Monsanto does continues under Bayer. Only this year, or maybe it's next year, Bayer said they're going to stop the residential sale of Roundup herbicide that is a known carcinogen. So they're going to stop selling it to like your average consumer, but they're going to let big farmers, industrial farmers, continue to use this carcinogen all over the world. Anyway, just it's like even when it comes out that this stuff is incredibly horrible, these companies are just like, yeah, but maybe not. Let's just keep doing it. All right, moving on to the next story. This is This is so I'm bringing this to you because this is beautiful propaganda. When I see the propaganda just really just like oozing and pus covered, I really like to to show you how amazing it is. This is from USA Today, and if I were to tell you what the real issues are in the United States, what's really harming people, the people that are really struggling, the things that are really bad. If I were to give you that list of like 100, and you think about the fact that there's a million people homeless in the country. There's so many that if they're not homeless, they're rent insecure. They could be evicted at any moment. There's people struggling in just so many ways. And what does USA Today say the problem is in this country? That squatters invade homes and refuse to leave. That is just a major issue, isn't it? That there's just so many squatters that aren't arrested. I mean, honestly, if I read this whole article, I'll read a little bit to you. But if I read this whole article, like they act like people aren't arrested when they just go into a house and just live there. I think it should be allowed if no one's living in the house, because we have 16 million empty houses across this country. 16 million empty houses. They just sit there all across this country, and yet we have people rent insecure, people living with a dozen people in a house that's meant to hold 2. We have that all over the place, and there's 16 million empty homes. And this article is saying the real issue is that there are just so many squatters that and there's no way to kick them out. We just can't get them out. They just squat all the time. Now, in other countries, it is legal to squat in a facility that's not being used. And there is actual debate about, well, it's not, it wasn't being used. It wasn't being used for a year, which then entitles other people to live there. In the U.S., we don't really have that stuff. We don't have squatters' rights almost ever. Rarely are there areas with squatters' rights. So the idea that this is some epidemic. So this article says, in Texas, a homeowner says she was locked out of her house by a squatter who claimed to have a lease after moving to the state with her family. The woman previously had been evicted from 3 other homes. Okay, so this is furthermore, besides the fact that people like this generally get arrested, I'm not saying it's right, but they generally get arrested. They were kicked out of the house by police, by men with guns. But on top of that, this is a rare exception. There are not many people in this country right now who just go into a house, see the homeowner walk up and go, this is my place. And they just lock the doors and refuse to leave. And no police or anything will come and arrest the people living in the house that isn't theirs. Now, I would argue if the house isn't being used, they should be allowed to. However, this is very rare. And yet here's this article acting like, this happens all the time. They found like 3 examples. In Maryland, a woman returned from vacation to find 2 squatters in her bed. They were not only living in her house, but also sold $50,000 of her furniture. Again, very rare. Also, the fact that you have $50,000 of furniture. Wow. It's a pattern. And then USA Today continues. It's a pattern that is playing out in many cities across the United States. No, it's not. It's really not. It's also common in Europe, where squatting has become a political movement with support from the left. Okay, now in Europe, there are some countries and some areas where there are squatters' rights. It is illegal if a facility, a building is not being used, and you go in there and you say, I will use this building, and you use it for life, and people are living there, and then there is a court battle because it was not being used, people now using it. And if you think about it, there's a lot of logic to that. To the idea that an empty building could be used by humans that need a place to goddamn live. Like, there's a lot of logic to that. So you can have that debate, but USA Today is acting like, that's just all over America. No, there are places where people fight eviction, and I also support that, fighting eviction. But the number of people that can just go into a home, squat there, and have someone show up, say, I own this property, and no police would kick them out. Very rare in the United States. Now, again, I'd argue if that person saying this is my property owns 15 houses and doesn't live in the one that they're living in, they probably should get to stay there. Then they go to the example of, and I kind of love this guy. They go to the example of Gurumrit Hanspal, who lives in Long Island. He's 52 years old. He hasn't paid his mortgage in 25 years. I really love this guy. The mortgage was foreclosed because he didn't, for lack of payment, but the company now owns the home has struggled for decades to evict Hanspal, who continues to change lawyers and file lawsuits to delay proceedings. Now that's amazing. He's fighting the banks and he's winning. He's winning. Good for him. We need more people winning against the banks. Also, this is how desperate this article is to act like this is happening a lot in the United States. They call it a fairly big problem. They then show a photo of these seemingly squatters making a point with cardboard boxes on their heads. And so you think, okay, these are American professional squatters who are trying to squat with cardboard on their heads, and they're stealing homes. And if you're an average reader who doesn't know to look at these things, because this whole article is about the United States, except for that one sentence saying it's also a problem in Europe. So this is all about it being in the United States, Texas, Long Island, everywhere. This photo in tiny writing, if you look at it, is former residents of a squat who gathered in front of a court in Amsterdam, Netherlands in 2019. So they found a photo of protesters in the Netherlands at a courthouse who had boxes on their head to make a point that they shouldn't have to live in boxes. And yet this article is including a 4-year-old photo from the Netherlands to act like this is what's happening in the United States. Oh, God. Propaganda is the best, isn't it? Thank you, USA Today. And by the way, in case you're wondering, USA Today, I believe, is the most read newspaper in America because they give it away for free in every hotel and everywhere. And so, and it's unlike most city newspapers, it's throughout the United States. So I believe it probably is the most read newspaper in the United States. And I used to, when I was traveling more, I used to pick them up to just look at the propaganda and the bullshit. And it's a newspaper for children. It really is a newspaper for very simple-minded people. But amazingly, people believe this propaganda. The number of Americans who probably read this and go, oh my God, they're coming for our houses. They're coming. Squatters are going to bust in my door right now. And they're going to say, we live here now and nobody's going to help me. Yeah, not a thing. Okay. Let's keep moving. But the rest of this live stream is going to be at rumble.com/Lee Camp. I'll give you the link. It's free to go there, free to join me over there, free to comment. Assuming it's running. Let me check and make sure it's running. Oh, wait. Sorry. Rumble is having an issue. I will not cut off and go to Rumble then. Damn. Yeah. That is true. Rumble is down. Okay. Sorry about this, folks. If it matters to you who are watching right now, because you're watching at other platforms, if it matters to you, I will put the whole thing up on Rumble later. But I wonder if I can comment on Rumble and have people join me here. Sorry, give me 1 second. Let me see if I can fix this for the people waiting on Rumble, because that does suck. This doesn't happen often. This has happened just a couple of times where something goes wrong on Rumble. Oh, no, I can't. Well, maybe the moderator, if you're listening to me, maybe you can put a comment in the, maybe you can put a comment in the chat about how we're not on Rumble. I am sorry about that, folks. Let's see if I can do anything else. Sorry about that. One more second, folks, and then we will continue. Okay, let's continue. Sorry about that, folks. And if it matters to you, I will be putting the whole thing up at Rumble later. But all right, I wanted to get to the fact that a lot of people don't realize the Supreme Court just denied Biden's sheepish attempt to eliminate some small levels of student loan debt, some tiny levels. And I wanted to clarify that exactly how Joe Biden has been responsible for that student loan debt, because a lot of people don't know this history. And so Spike Cohen put up a great list of exactly how Biden is the one that created this problem. Biden created the student debt crisis. He said the solution is simple. Students who truly can't pay back their student loans should be able to have it discharged in bankruptcy court. This is quite normal for everything else, right? If you truly have no way to pay back loans, you can declare bankruptcy in the United States. That's a thing. That would also force lenders to be less predatory in their lending practices, and it would force universities to make their tuitions more affordable as lenders refused to make risky, overly expensive loans. However, in 1978, Senator Joe Biden, a young, far more bald Joe Biden back in 1978, supported the, quote, Middle Income Student Assistance Act, which eliminated income restrictions on federal loans to expand eligibility to all students. So it expanded eligibility to all students, but that meant you had a lot of lower income people getting loans that very few of them could pay back, which, here's an idea, make college free. How about that? How about that as an answer, rather than, hey, we're going to find more ways to indebt you and lock you into this system of often horrible wage slavery. He then used the elimination of income restriction to warn of the threat of student debt bankruptcy and wrote a separate bill later that year to block students from filing bankruptcy on those loans. The income restrictions were reinstated in 1981. He then went on to vote for bills. He then went on to vote for bills which extended loan eligibility to students with no parental financial support. In 1984, Biden used his senior position in the Judiciary Committee to extend bankruptcy exemptions to vocational schools as well. And now that he's created the debt crisis that everyone with common sense warned would happen, he's trying again to use it as an excuse to assert powers that his office does not have because, well, it actually does have some of those. I don't know why he needs to include that in there. It actually does have some of these abilities. Now, the way he's chosen to do it, he could eliminate most federal student loans with executive action pretty easily. But the quote continues, because that's what politicians always do: create a crisis and then grandstand on your suffering that he caused in order to push for more power and more of your money. Well, they exploit you as much as humanly possible. And then when they need to get elected, they then say, I'm going to help people with deal with all these problems. And they say they're going to help with all these things, many of which Joe Biden has caused throughout his tenure. Either he's been one of the big main pushes behind many of these catastrophes, or he's been just a cog in the wheel of federal government that voted for and supported so much of the harm and extraction of the average working class. To this day, he continues, he still won't push Congress to end bankruptcy exemption for student loans for a very simple reason. He doesn't want the crisis to end. He wants it to worsen so he can exploit it for more power. Well, I don't think that's the heart of the reason. Certainly he loves more power, although I don't know that he actually knows his name anymore. But the heart of the reason is it's not what the capitalists want, right? It's not what the ruling elite want, because bankruptcy allows for your average person to get out of trouble, to get out of a place where they're being sucked dry by our vampiric state. So that's the real reason is the people that fund Joe Biden. And by the way, he's been heavily funded by credit card companies and banks throughout his career, hence Delaware. Because the people that fund him hate for anyone to declare bankruptcy, hate for anyone to get out from under their thumb, hate for anyone to not be paying day in and day out just to survive, just to get by. So it's those are many of the big reasons. All right, I am very excited about the interview I have now. I've dealt with multiple fuck ups today, some technical, but at least we now have her with us. So I have been bringing to you, I brought you several videos, probably 3 or 4, excellent videos of activists, interrupting your ruling elite, for lack of a better term. These elite officials in many places. Some of them are Congress people. Some of them are on the boards of big oil companies. And these activists have interrupted them, have not allowed them to continue with business as usual, and have forced them to face the harm of the climate crisis, literally in their face, because most of the time they're in their bubble. They don't see the reality. They don't see the people who want to scream at them, do something. And so that type of action is incredibly important. And Climate Defiance, I think I'm getting that name right, has done amazing work in their short time. And now I'm bringing you one of the founders, Riley Hott. Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for being here. I'm sorry for all the difficulties. Really appreciate you giving us the time. So what you guys have been doing has just been amazing. And how long have you been active? It's not that old, right?
Yeah, we officially launched on March 22nd. So it's only been 3 months and we've done around 20 direct actions so far, I think.
Yeah, it's incredible. And you know, I think the most recent one I showed was the Chuck Schumer. I don't know if that was a fundraiser or just a dinner.
It was a fundraiser.
Yeah, of very it seemed high level fundraiser. I mean, the guy, this said a lot. The guy yelling into your camera, how did you guys even get in here? Because they do not want you there. So talk about how you choose who to interrupt and why you're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, as mentioned, Climate Defiance is a new youth-led org focused on using mass direct action and disruptive direct action tactics to confront the climate crisis, specifically folks that are super entrenched in fossil fuel funds. And so as far as who we decide to disrupt, it's really the folks that are most culpable for the climate crisis on a policy level. And we started as focusing on the Biden administration specifically because Biden has the authority to declare a climate emergency, to end new oil and gas leases. That's also something he promised he would do when he ran for office. No new drilling, period, in his words. And yeah, so he is no climate president. And we are trying to make that case very clear because a lot of environmental groups aren't willing to push Biden as far as he needs to be pushed for some reason. So I think we kind of fill that gap pretty well because, like you mentioned, these people need to hear from the folks who are directly impacted. So yeah, the action where we disrupted Manchin was really close to my heart because I'm from West Virginia. I've been fighting against the Mountain Valley Pipeline and amongst other things. Manchin just doesn't give a shit about West Virginians. So that was definitely the one action that really stuck out to me. But there's been around 20 of them so far. So they're a bit jumbled as far as who do we pick, it's like there's a lot of them.
Well, yeah, and so there's some with well-known names like Manchin, who he also proves how meaningless the two-party divide is on so many of these topics. It's how does he not count as a Republican? It's all very laughable. I mean, the reason he's not a Republican is because the Democrats are essentially equally bad on all this stuff. They just are full of a lot of nice talk about climate change and about how they'll do something one day, any day now. But some of the people that are interrupted are not as well known, such as I believe it was the person from Harvard who's on the board of ConocoPhillips. Is that right?
Jody Freeman, in San Francisco was having an event. I will say, like, I guess on the terms of like, how do we pick? I think a lot of folks have been coming to us and been like, hey, like this event is happening. This person is entrenched. Like, here's how, like, can you help us put together direct action there? And so it kind of comes together pretty naturally. Like, these folks are clearly just doing bad things and the folks around them know it and they want to do something about it. So yeah, Jody Freeman is on the board of ConocoPhillips and also is professor in, I believe, like environmental sustainability is like one of the things that she supposedly teaches, right, as she's like taking in money from sitting on the board of Conoco. So yeah, it's these very stark differences. Like you said, they'll say like corporate sustainability and like, here's how our shareholders will benefit from clean energy transition by 2050, while they're actively like supporting some of the worst things for the environment. So calling attention to that has been like really needed, I think.
I'm always fascinated with because it amazes me that more people are not like standing up and fighting back and actually willing to go and interrupt some of these events or be in front of these powerful people who could actually make the change and aren't doing it. What was it that pushed you to realize, oh, there's no like other group that's gonna save us? Like it's up to us,
Where did I realize it's up to us? I think it's a hard question to answer because looking back, like before I was really an organizer, my first ever march that I attended or protest was the March for Our Lives in DC. And I think just growing up generally in a system where we knew like, and we had trainings on what to do if a shooter came into the school was a very stark realization just from a very young age that it's up to us, like in a very real sense, when we have to face these crises, it is up to us. It's left up to us, even children. So seeing hundreds of thousands of young people in the streets during the March for Our Lives and listening to Yolanda King, Martin Luther King Jr.'s granddaughter, speak to a crowd of hundreds of thousands at only 10 years old was this huge wake-up call. I was 18 at the time, and I thought I didn't know enough to speak out on some of these issues, even though I had directly faced impacts from a lot of these crises and I hadn't realized it yet. And I just didn't think I could speak up. So I think, yeah, that was kind of like the big wake up call for me in realizing it's up to us. And sadly, that means it's up to like young people. I'm constantly hearing people say like, young people, you guys are going to save us. Woohoo. And it's like, y'all have been saying that for generation after generation. It is going to take all of us. Like maybe we're the most vocal, loud, and angry generation on planet Earth right now, but there are reasons for that. And y'all have a responsibility too, as older folks, to like listen to us and take us seriously. So yeah, I'd say that's when I realized it's up to us.
Talk about some of the responses you've gotten from these people and the goons, security goons at their events. You in every video I've seen, you are a peaceful group of people standing up, holding up signs, sometimes holding up a sarcastic award. You're not holding up anything threatening. And yet, in some cases, they just leave. In other cases, they violently extract you.
Yeah, from my personal experience, like I wanted to do the past few actions this past week. We disrupted, attempted to disrupt a Biden fundraiser, a keynote speech by Vice President Harris, and the Schumer event. All three of those things I wanted to participate in, but last week, or the week before, they're all running together. I went to Detroit, where we were planning on disrupting Secretary of Energy Granholm at the Detroit Free Press Breakfast Club. And this was like the most violence I've ever faced. It was really shocking. I had bruises, like this entire arm was just covered. It was like a black, purple, all the collars bruise on this arm as well. On my side of my leg were two very stark like lines from where I got thrown up against the staircase. I had at least 8 bruises on me, and that was like a first.
Yeah, I think I have the images there. Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's my bruises. So yeah, basically, like you said, our main tactic is literally just trying to like occupy the space in front of these important people and speak to the climate crisis and how they're culpable in it. So we were trying to get past security guards on a staircase peacefully, like we were just trying to like walk past them, and they were not having it. So they called in like 10, I don't even know how many people. They just kept coming from all angles, picking us off one by one. Like one person was choked by their tie and drug out, and another person was drug out by their ears. I can't even explain how I was drug out, because it was like I blacked out from the trauma of just being like slung around like a rag doll. And I mean, it is just like, it's hard, like when you ask like why aren't more people doing this, it's because like they utilize violence against us. It's really scary. I mean, it's not fun. I didn't have a great time recovering from these injuries.
Yeah.
But I feel even more resolved because I recognize, like, if we didn't have power, if there was no point or meaning behind us doing these direct actions, we wouldn't face the kind of pushback that we do.
Mhm.
So I like low key in the moment kind of appreciate when the mask comes off and we have somebody like Steve Clemons screaming at the back of my head to get off my stage. I think that really just shows like the cards they're playing, because they play the cards of violence and destruction and tearing down people. They aren't here to uplift you and to make policy with any kind of empathy and compassion, because they can rake in buco dollars for their own trust funds for their own kids while the rest of us suffer. So I can't even remember your first question, but that's my rant.
Well, no, I appreciate it all. I'm sorry you went through that, but obviously you're right that this is how they respond when this stuff is thrown in their faces, when the reality is thrown in their faces. I mean, we are a dying planet. We are killing the environment around us in a myriad of ways. And here are the people who supposedly could do something, and many of them act like and talk like they're going to do something, and then it's absolutely nothing. And so when you throw that in their faces, they can't actually defend themselves. So the response is to either leave if they're being peaceful, or to be incredibly violent with you and with those who confront them with this. And you're right, it does. It shows, the mask comes off. It shows you what they really stand for. If they really stood for the environment, if they really stood for the climate, they'd have no reason to run from you or drag you out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Have you had any threats of, I don't know if they've arrested you or threatened charges or anything?
Usually when they threaten arrest, it'll be like private security being like, we're going to call the cops. And then they will call the cops. And I think at all of these like disruptive, smaller direct actions, we've not once had the cops be the ones who are either violent towards us or escorting us out. It's always private security who have literally no right to assault you. I mean, the police shouldn't have a right to assault you in the first place, but like these people definitely don't. They have no qualifications. They're just like working at this hotel. And yeah, so typically they'll either try to like physically remove us, or threaten us with the cops, but they don't want to go through all the paperwork. So generally what I've been telling folks is like, if there's an action like this or not an action, but like an event like this happening, you're generally like not risking arrest. We tell folks ahead of time, we give people, here's your rights, here's the legal support we can offer in the event that an arrest does happen. But it hasn't happened a single time at any one of these. They don't want to be seen. It's funny because they don't want to be seen arresting climate protesters, but they also are like
Right.
literally being seen bruising climate protesters. But yeah.
Yeah, and I'd say simply from a strategy standpoint, it makes sense to keep it all very nonviolent and also the very clear that it's nonviolent, because then you're right that they look the moment because if someone were to join your organization and try and push it towards even just property destruction, I don't mean attacking anybody, but even just property destruction, then they look fine arresting you and putting people in jail and stuff. But when it's people holding up a sign saying you're killing the planet and they then need to attack you, it actually shows a lot about them. It really shows who they are. What's next for you guys? I mean, obviously you're not going to tell me your next action, or that might give it away, but yeah, are you planning to grow more cities, or is it just day by day?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think like we're growing our numbers day by day, and as the numbers grow, we learn about new fights in different communities and where they need support. So I can only imagine that the heat's going to turn up, pun intended. Yeah, as things get worse, like I've basically been telling folks that, because some people have asked, like, do you think you're like ahead of the game? And I'm like, no, I think we're really late. But like, as more people are facing these direct impacts, wildfire smoke being on the East Coast, just like seeing it right in front of their doorstep, I think more people are going to join in, and I hope they do. And you can go to climatedefiance.org and sign our Pledge of Resistance if that applies to you and you want to take more direct action to confront these folks. Because petitions are not doing it for us. Like, we've exhausted the list.
Thank you for saying petitions are not doing it.
And I'm coming at this from the perspective of like, I've been a grassroots organizer. I actually started organizing in 2021 around the For the People Act. And so I helped run the largest canvassing operation in West Virginia history. We knocked over 70,000 doors with Unpack. And then we, got thousands of petition signatures. We got resolutions passed through WVU's SGA, including Marshall's SGA. Like, we did everything you're supposed to do. We hosted rallies. We did every nonviolent tactic in the book, minus disruptive direct action. And then we decided to do a 23-day hunger strike. And even after 23 days of hunger striking, Manchin and Sinema chose the filibuster over our voting rights. Manchin did not meet with us West Virginians, who ran the largest canvassing operation in West Virginia history. So that was a very stark realization for me as well. They continue to delay. As storms surge, they will continue to delay. And we need to be the people like showing them the countdown and being like, the clock is ticking, y'all don't listen to us, and so now we're coming to you. Like, you need to listen to us now. I don't know how that thought originally started, but all that to say, like, I've tried all of the other tactics.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until we even went on hunger strike that we were told from Chuck Schumer to Mark Kelly to us that the voting rights legislation would not have been put back on the floor in January of 2022 if we had not been out there on the White House lawn and the Senate lawn hunger striking. They said that. They admitted it. So we will be there and continue to use direct action because they've literally told us that's the only card that they listen to.
Yeah. And I always ask the question, when was the last time you heard a politician in the U.S. government say, we were going to do A, B, or C, but then I got a petition and just a lot of people had signed it. Just 12,000 people had put their name on it. So I changed everything and we no longer are going to abuse people. It's like, never. I mean, maybe that had an impact 40 years ago. It's just not a thing now. When you show up and you say we have 20,000 signatures, they don't care. They don't care. Like you're saying, they don't care unless you're in their face.
Mm-hmm. Not to say it's not important to have those on the ground, like one-on-one conversations. That was the most impactful part for me during canvassing, knowing like, okay, hundreds of people are calling Manchin today and he's not going to listen to them, but I am. And I'm going to take these problems like seriously and remember them and bring them with me in direct action and remember all these people that he's not listening to. Mm-hmm. I think that was the most beneficial part for me. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So how can people help out again? It's climatedefiance.com or org.
It's climatedefiance.org. And we also have social media. We have Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, all of the above at Climate Defiance.
Well, you're doing amazing, and I'll keep showing your videos, and just keep doing exactly what you're doing, because it is making a difference. It is waking people up, and I'm sure it seems hard when you walk away with bruises all over your body. But this fight has to be taken to the faces of the powerful. So,
yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Riley.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that is the episode today. Please become a member at leecamp.net. That's the only way I support my work. Also, if you want to help out with the campaign, yardrock2024.com. I'm running a stone that I found on the ground for president, and there's a couple of items of merch there. 50% of all proceeds go to eliminate medical debt for struggling Americans. We've already eliminated $12,000 of medical debt because it gets multiplied via RIP medical debt. But thank you so much for being here. I am switching my schedule to Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. However, tomorrow I am off to celebrate the birthday of this phenomenal country. It wasn't really our birthday because we were around long before that. But anyway, not meaning we, the United States, meaning people living here and considering this their land. And so it's not really the birth of anything. But besides that, I'm going to have a beer. No, I also, part of the reason I'm taking tomorrow off because I figured most of you wouldn't be watching. So, but I apologize for the Rumble difficulty. We will have this whole thing up at rumble.com/LeeCamp soon. And yeah, yardrock2024.com. And please become a member at leecamp.net. All right. I will see you soon. Keep fighting.